Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special segment of the Smite Update. Today I have a special guest we'll be interviewing. I'd like to introduce Todd Harris of Hi Rez Studios. Thank you, Todd, for joining me.
You're welcome. It's awesome to be here.
Thank you. So let's go ahead and jump into it. For community members that don't know, who is Todd Harris and what do you do at Hi Rez Studios?
All right. So I am actually one of the founders of the studio. Hi-Rez who people know from his Twitch stream appearances, was kind enough to, in 2005, talk with me about the idea of starting a game studio. So my official title is Chief Operating Officer. And what that means is really, at Hi-Rez, we try to not have too much management. We try to keep most people working on making the game better, but we do need a little bit of overhead. So Hi-Rez focuses mainly on game mechanics. He loves to give input on that. Stu is the other name that you'll hear sometimes as a part of the management team, and he's basically super project manager for development these days. And for myself, I do a lot of the management of studio operations. So that's everything from hiring people, sometimes firing people, the boring functions that have to do with just running a business like legal and HR sort of things. I also focus a lot on building our external functions. So marketing, PR, relationships with folks like Tencent. So together between Hi-Rez, Stu, and myself, we try to make sure all the boring overhead stuff gets done so that our talented dev team can make Smite as good as possible, and we just try to remove as many obstacles or in their way as possible.
That's pretty cool because most people, think of a corporation having your huge hierarchy and all that stuff, and it doesn't sound like you guys are like that. It sounds like you guys are quite innovative and kind of up to date with the times per se when it comes down to your management style.
Pretty flat, for sure.
Yeah.
There's some good things and there's some challenging things, but decisions get made quickly, and we're definitely flat. We don't have a lot of hierarchy in the company.
Sure. So let's go ahead and jump back. What did you do before working for Hi Rez Studios? You said that came along in about 2005, and so I guess what brought you into the kind of game development industry?
So when I first got into computers in basically junior high, really before junior high, but when I was in, I think it was 7th grade, I got my first IBM PC, and this is way back in the day. I mean, this was literally one of the first PCs off the assembly line because I had messed around with Apple II, I messed around with Commodore, but my dad was an IBMer for 30 years. And when the first PC came out, there was actually an employee lottery to get the very first batch, and we were lucky to get one. So we literally had one of the first ones. And at that time, there were about 2 games for the PC. There was Adventure, text-based Adventure, and there was Olympic Decathlon, where you hit the 2 keys as fast as possible, and that was the innovative gameplay. And then Flight Simulator came a little bit later. So I taught myself to program, wanting to get into games, and went on to do computer science, went to school for computer science, and always thought I'd make games. But out of school, I ended up taking a different path and doing retail software. So it was building software to automate retail stores at NCR. And then after NCR, I went to this little company called Radiant Systems, which was founded by this guy named Hi-Rez with him and his brother. And so basically that's where myself, Hi-Rez, Stu Chisholm, also our Chief Technical Officer, Mike Dudgeon, Nabil, who's a name that people know, some of our programmers like Chris. Basically a lot of history of working on retail software. And after about 15 years of doing that boring stuff, we got to do games. So that's my background.
Wow. That's quite the resume there. I mean, coming over from there, and did Hi-Rez just approach you one day and be like, hey, we're done in the retail industry, let's go ahead and just move into gaming because we all love it and it's our passion? Or was gaming not really talked about then?
It's pretty close to your first story. I mean, HiRez, the whole time he was CEO of Radiant Systems
Yep.
and Blue Cube, he was playing games like crazy. So I always say by
Okay.
day he was a CEO, and at night he was just hardcore gamer, you know.
Okay.
And the same with a lot of our programmers. I'm less of a hardcore gamer. I'm a little more of a sampler, but I definitely kept my hobby alive the whole time. And so, yeah, in 2005. Really, it started with just a couple programmers. It was just a side project where there were two programmers that were working on a little project.
Sure.
But I think for HiRez, probably more than 20 years of retail software, he was just done. And he even though the company was doing really well, but he was kind of less involved in the day-to-day management. And he said, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this for real, like not just two programmers, but like actually putting in a lot of money and trying to make a large scale project." And I think he thought maybe people would think he was crazy if
yes, very much so.
If he had two people in there, you know, maybe it would actually be real. So
cool.
So yeah, it didn't take me long to hop on board. So that's what started HiRez.
Sweet. One of Hi-Rez's products is Smite, a MOBA style game. To possibly interested gamers, what is Smite and what makes it so different from every other MOBA in the industry right now?
So there's a lot of MOBAs. I won't explain MOBA. I'll assume people know MOBA. So Smite is different in a few key ways that most people recognize right away. You know, the first is obviously the camera, which is third person, rather than over the top isometric. So that's the one that jumps out at you right away. Second, kind of going along with that camera angle, the movement is WASD movement, and your shots are aim skill shots. So you get more of that action gameplay rather than as much tab targeting. So that's the second big item, is this action skill shot element.
Sure.
The third is obviously the theme. We pull on gods from various mythologies and pantheons and literature and put them all in one battlefield. So that makes it a bit different in that it's grounded in these myths and cultures that actually are out there in the world that people are familiar with, versus as many, I'll say, you know, recently made up characters. And then the fourth is the variety of modes. Most MOBAs have one primary mode and maybe a secondary. And with Smite, we are more like action games or shooters in that we wanted to have a variety of different modes. And so, as you know, we have 5-ish modes that all offer a very different experience. And there's certainly one that we emphasize currently for competitive play, which is Conquest, a more traditional 3-lane Dota-style map. But there's other ones like Arena that appeal to a different audience and bring in a different group. And we think that's helping to grow the MOBA genre because it's offering these alternative ways of playing. So there's other, more minor differences, but those are the ones that jump out right away.
Excellent. Thanks for explaining that. There are a lot of things that go on behind the scenes within the game of Smite. I'd like to take some time to go into the backbone of the game and talk a little bit about the Smite servers. So right now within Smite, how many server regions are offered to players?
So as far as regions, basically there's currently North America and Europe as 2 regions. Those are the 2 primary markets that we're focused on right now. And so those are the region selections.
Okay, and then this will kind of funnel into our next question here, which is, what city in North America and Europe are these servers housed in? And are there plans to relocate them as Smite grows in population?
So we do plan on expanding them or relocating.
Okay.
It's a pretty fluid process. I'll get to the question,
Sure.
But one thing that's also important for people to know is we spend a lot of time architecting the back end so that it's, I guess, cloud-like. Cloud is the big buzzword that people hear that implies that the server can be located anywhere, and that is the goal. There's definitely different ping and different considerations, but the nice thing about Smite, compared and very different from our first game, Global Agenda, is that the old days you really required this big data center and it was hard to move. With a cloud-friendly architecture, you can move more easily, and you can also test out different vendors more easily.
Okay.
So that's something that that the architecture lets us do, is test out from time to time different vendors to make sure they're delivering the performance that we need. So currently, like as of this day, when we're having this interview, the European servers are located physically in Amsterdam.
Okay.
And the North American servers for Smite are located in Virginia.
Okay.
But that could change and expand, and we have actually moved them from time to time, and will continue to do so during beta, because that gives us useful information so that we ensure we're delivering the best experience possible. The other thing I'll point out is that's
Sure.
where the match servers are located, which means when you're playing a game of Conquest or Arena, that's where your 10 people are playing, basically. That server is going back and forth with the client. We have other servers that we call core servers that do more central functions like login. They have the database, which saves all the persistent information about the game. They handle functions like some of the party information and chat information. And those core servers are located in Atlanta. So you can think of it at a high level like you're talking to the core servers, and then when a match is assembled, you're on a match or an instance-based server, and that's where you're in Virginia or Amsterdam.
Oh, okay, so that's pretty cool. So kind of all the inner workings and the brain goes on in Atlanta, but then your regional servers are kind of, as you talked about, in Virginia and Amsterdam, which allows you guys, as time goes on, for growth to be able to just add servers, I guess, as the regions expand without having to worry about moving your brain per se. Would that make sense?
That's exactly. And the brain servers, more or less, there are fewer number of servers, and they can scale to a pretty large population.
Sure.
Where the other ones, we actually add additional server boxes, either in that same location or in other locations as the population grows.
Okay, that makes sense. That's pretty cool, and that's really, really nice, because I don't think a lot of people realize, I think a lot of the community doesn't understand, we haven't been told about that before from what I've heard, and so with that type of information, it's good to know, like, hey, there isn't just one server in Europe that's operating everything. I assume it's something like a cluster going on within the servers, so that's really cool to hear. I guess my question there is, looking to the future, we have Smite Beta opening up, I believe it is, in the Asian market in October. Any plans yet that you can release as to what city you're trying to focus that server around, or not yet?
So not yet, and that will really be Tencent's decision.
Okay.
So the way the responsibilities divide, Hi-Rez will continue to directly serve North America and Europe. We'll manage those servers, the locations of those servers. Tencent will be responsible for choosing the locations within other territories, starting in China. Now, fortunately, they're China's biggest internet company, so they have a really good idea of where those servers should be located, and we're going to leave that to them.
Leave it to the experts, right?
Exactly. Now, just for your other point, so people understand, the core servers that are located in Atlanta, those are, on the order of magnitude of let's say 5 to 10 server boxes, very big, beefy, octa-core boxes.
Okay.
Then the instance servers that are in currently Amsterdam and Virginia, we play with the numbers some, and we test over time different, more powerful hardware versus less powerful. But we're talking about collectively between 90 and 120 boxes there.
Wow.
So it's definitely not one server. These are clusters with many, many boxes. And again, we continue to play with different numbers there as we improve server performance versus as population grows. But that's the order of magnitude we're talking about as far as server boxes.
That's awesome. I'm in the IT field, and that just blows me away to think of something at that level. So that's pretty impressive. Regardless of players selecting to play in North America, sometimes they're placed on the European region servers. Can you kind of explain why that happens?
So the reason that that happens is, first of all, I'll say we look at that a lot. And region locking confirmed in this interview, by the way, for the next patch.
Thank you.
You get the scoop. If Aris hasn't already spoiled it on a Twitch chat somewhere.
He never does that. Come on now.
No, but up until now, in the way Live behaves, you set a preference, but it is only a preference. And so if you are playing at a time when the population is perhaps low, or you're playing a less popular mode, or you're someone that's hard for the matchmaker to handle because you're exceptionally good, perhaps, you know, it does the best job it can, but the current live logic says, if I can't put you in your region, I will go ahead and give you a match outside your region. And from what we've looked at, 90% of the games that are launched, all players do have their preferred region. So it does a good job, but it's not perfect, and it isn't 100%, and so people definitely have that experience, and that's why. Now, to follow that up, I will say that based on feedback, in the very next patch, for all timed queues, we plan to implement region locking, which means that you will only get on the region that you've selected, and if there's a low population issue or you're hard to match for whatever reason, you're going to have to actually change that that region in order to get a match, but you shouldn't get put on a server that you don't specify. So we'll see how that goes. You know, we expect that'll be received positively, but there's a consequence with all these things, so we'll just have to evaluate it. But that's planned for the next patch.
Excellent, excellent. Well, very happy to hear that. That actually blows away my next question, so thank you very much. So if you are in North America, let's say, and you there are no matches available to you just because of, as you said, depending on the type of player you are, skill level and stuff like that, will we continue to get that screen that says was not able to find a match, or will you continue to sit in queue? Or is that something you can release or not?
I'm going to have to check with Chris. I believe you'll get the you were not able to be placed in a match, and then it would re-queue you, but I don't know for sure. So.
Sure, no problem, no problem. Players sometimes will complain of high ping times, which affect gameplay in a negative manner. When this occurs, what exactly occurs on the server side, or is it on the client side that is affecting and making that high ping time?
So if they're actually getting high ping, of course, you know, sometimes if you're having a PC client rendering issue or performance issue, that will feel clunky, but it's not really ping, right? So that's in a different category. But if it's high ping, it is either that you were placed on a server outside your region, which again should go away with the next patch.
Great.
Another possibility that players might suspect is that the server is just busy, which is very, very unlikely. That's an easy thing for us to monitor, and our CPUs on the server are constantly monitored. And as I just shared, we have plenty of servers, so that's not the issue that the server can't keep up, at least not currently. It could one day be an issue, but it hasn't been. The most likely issue is really related to the last mile that they call it, which is the routing of packets from your PC to the server is not taking an optimal route. And we definitely do see some of that. And oftentimes it's specific to one internet service provider or to one location. And those are things that we're always trying to collect information and gather, but again, that's not an issue really specific to Smite. It's part of online games in general, and that's the most likely potential issue.
Sure. Looking to the next year, we will have 3 regions to pick from worldwide: North America, Europe, and Asia. Is Hi-Rez Studios' future goal to have worldwide server coverage, allowing for players, regardless of their global location, to play on at least one server under 75 ping? What details can you give on that?
I mean, I think that the reality is it's a market by market decision.
Yep.
So certainly we all hope that Smite grows, that Smite has appeal in various markets and different geographies, Brazil, Russia, Southeast Asia, Korea, those are all major markets that, assuming the audience is there, we would look to deliver that server. But it is a market by market decision. So at this point, we can only talk about the sequence of markets that we're looking at, which is US and Europe now, China next.
Yep.
And after that China process goes through, then we'll look at the next markets for us to go after. Because as you can probably imagine, there's a decision around server location that's important. There's also a decision around localizing the game, working with marketing partners so that people know about the game and just know that it's in their area, and support. That's also if people have a question so that they can get support. So there's a few things to consider besides location of servers in order to have it be a good experience for people. So we hope the game spreads, and if so, we'll continue to spread servers as we go.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Todd, I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to sit down with me. I think from everyone in the community and myself, we'd like to say thank you to your entire team for all the hard work that you do on Smite, because it's such an amazing game for us to play for free, because it is free to play. Well, folks, this has been a special segment of this Smite Update. Please check out the Smite Update every week on Mondays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern over at twitch.tv/OctanePro SCII. Once again, Todd, thank you very much for joining us.
You catching my Chung-Ah shirt?
Oh, what are you telling us? We're going to see more of those.
Just shout out to Anna for making it. We'll try to get some more.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Todd.
All right. Thanks, guys.